This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Body Count, a history podcast where we gab about death and disaster through the ages, highlighting figures, single events, time periods, whatever it may be that resulted in someone, or as is usually the case, a lot of someone's dying. I am your host, Jessica Manor, joined as always by my co-host, and I would say just in the mix all together. Kara, please introduce yourself.
Oh, well, hello. I am Kara DiDemizio, joining in for a very exciting episode with two wonderful ladies I am jazzed about tonight. But first, before we let them introduce ourselves, we have to go over a brief stint in housekeeping.
And we do it every week, guys. I know that you're tired of the spiel, but then again, a lot of you are not doing it based on numbers. So we need you. We beg you. Please go rate and review. Give us those 5 stars on iTunes. It is not to make us feel good about ourselves. It just really helps us out on the business end. That being said, we are forever grateful to those that do. Now, that being said, as Kara has already told us, we have some guests with us tonight that I am also #jazzed about because they're fantastic. And I always love everybody's podcast. I wouldn't have people on this show, and neither would Kara if we didn't. But this is one that I especially get excited about because I think their content is so fantastic. They're so good at what they do. So, guys, please go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
I'm Emily.
I'm Kelly.
And we're whining about Herstory.
Yay.
And thank you for that lovely intro. I'm not crying, you're crying.
Turn up over here.
And where can we find you, ladies? Where can the listeners find you on social media?
Well, you can find us anywhere that you're listening to Body Count right now, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, all the big names. You can also find us on Instagram at WAHpod, Facebook at Whining About Herstory,
Twitter at WAH_pod, and we also have a website, whiningaboutherstory.com.
and that's whining, WINING, because we take whining very seriously.
We do.
I love it.
I
And
love
know
it
Jessica
in
does
that.
too.
Yeah, God knows. I'm not whining, but I am, beer me in essence, if you will. But then again, I'm a savage from the state of Texas. What do any of us really expect? So I'm very excited about the content that you ladies are bringing us tonight because it is both very much in your wheelhouse and very much in ours. And I can't think of a more blessed union in all of podcasting. So I will allow you guys to take it away.
All right. Well, today we are going to be covering some women that you may not have heard of who have some pretty high body counts of their own. So,
Very Minnesotan.
yes, very Minnesotan. That's where we're based out of.
It was beautiful. I was going to say that was an absolute thing of beauty, how that just rolled off the tongue there.
Pay
And
no
our
attention
listeners.
to the lutefisk behind the curtain.
The lutefisk and the gray ducks.
Yeah.
It's a more melodious version of Drop Dead Gorgeous if I've ever heard it, like in my entire life. So absolutely take it away, ladies. Who are we talking in this
All right.
lineup?
Well, we have a couple stories for you, and the first one is the Angel Makers of Nagariv.
Because Emily picked hard pronunciations.
Yes. I see some happy hands.
I am happy hands. They weren't full jazz. They went from jazz to excited, cheering you on fists. So I am very excited to get to this. Woohoo! Good one.
All right. So first of all, I am probably not pronouncing the town of Nagariv correctly, but this is the closest thing that I could find on all the Google pronunciations. So suck it.
Suck it and stick it.
Suck it and stick it. So for this story, we're going to travel back to 1911, the far gone times of the 1900s. And we're going to go to the small farming village of Nagariv in Hungary. So life here was rough, and that's putting it nicely, especially if you were a woman.
Not like fun rough.
No, not like, kinky rough. It was just like dragging your ass home after a long day at the office, and you just kind of wish you would die rough.
Oh, I feel that in my soul.
Yeah.
Right.
So traditional gender roles were strictly enforced and expected, but in addition, like, women didn't really have any autonomy. They had no say in their finances, property, their bodies, you name it, they didn't have control over it. The men of the village worked really hard, but also drank really hard and were not always the nicest to their wives. Shame. Traditionally, marriage...
Shame on you and your goat.
Yeah. Shame on you. Shame on your cow.
That is a deep lesson. I love. They're bringing out the Eddie Murphy vibes immediately. Very nice. Very nice.
So traditionally, marriages were arranged when girls were teenagers to adult men. Collective ew. The girls were not allowed to object, and divorce was completely out of the question, even in cases of abuse. It was just, suck it up. This is your life. You are meant to pop out babies and serve your man sexually. So get ready for that.
What an exciting future.
Right?
Sounds wonderful.
Doesn't
so
it?
if you were an unmarried woman, you had better not think about having sex, because pregnancy out of wedlock could cause a woman to be completely ostracized by the community. Abortion was completely illegal, and some women actually turned to suicide to avoid the shame of having a baby out of wedlock, which that's just how oppressive the society is, where women will kill themselves
There
to
was no
avoid
option
shame.
for 'em.
Yeah, what else are you going to do?
You're destitute from the get-go. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
Even if you became pregnant while married, since there were no contraceptives, many families would have children whom they couldn't afford to care for. And that would bury them deeper and deeper in poverty. And these are a bunch of poor farmers already. They're not rolling in anything but like manure. Which I'm sure made sex all the more enjoyable for these captive wives.
In your
Oh.
one-room house, stinking of literal manure, rolling in it. What joy.
Well, if you've been to Terre Haute, it has a vaguely
Mhm.
similar smell. Sorry, not really.
Coming after Terre Haute. Coming hard.
I'm
Hard.
a Hoosier. I'm a Hoosier. We best avoid that part of the state.
What is that dark place over there? That's Terre Haute. We don't go there.
Ah.
So one day, a woman named Julia Fezix rolled into town. And Julia was this like middle-aged housewife whose husband had mysteriously disappeared. Ooh, spooky. So as a midwife, Julia was trained in helping with childbirth, but also in providing abortions. And she was actually arrested at least 10 times for this, but was always let off by judges. And this was probably because Julia was the closest thing they had to a medical professional in the village. And if you have an infection,
maybe the judges also went to her and was like,
my girlfriend's pregnant.
I assaulted this girl. Can
That's
you
true.
help me?
Yeah.
There's some under the table dealings there,
Yeah.
so to speak.
I've
Things
committed
don't-
assault, have an unwanted child, and I've also got a bit of a case of gangrene. Can you help me?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was
What
the
joy.
one-stop shop for all of your problems.
Oh.
So because of her services, Julia became a leader and confidant amongst the village women. And then in 1940, almost said 1941, thank you, dyslexia, 1914, World War I came to Nagariv, and all the able-bodied men shipped out to fight, leaving the women independent for the first time in their lives.
Like, there had to be a tiny bit of culture shock, and then just, woo, party!
Yeah. It's like going to college. The first day you're kind of like, oh, it's so big and new. And the second day you're like, chug, 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 chug.
And the second day you do your first keg stand, you
Yeah.
know, exactly that.
Especially in Wisconsin.
Oh yeah.
Naturally, you guys took it out of my brain right then. That metaphor.
Remember, I'm not that far off from IU, so
Yeah.
what you will.
So with all the men gone, the women had to step up and do the farming and the hard labor, along with raising children, cleaning, and all of their typical womanly duties. And this was crazy hard, but they were doing it, and they were doing it on their own, you know, minus getting beaten, raped by their husbands.
Yeah,
so arguably it was way better.
That's true. That's a quality of life change. Like that's
Yeah.
That's like a big boost.
So around the same time, a POW camp was established just outside of the town, and apparently this POW camp was super lax because the village women began shacking up with the male prisoners. They're going full on, like, repressed high school girl first year of college. Like, they're independent, they're having sex, they're just enjoying themselves, maybe taking it a little too far. And if any of the women became pregnant with their POW booty calls, they would just go to Julia. So the women, they're living it up, they're enjoying their freedom. When World War I ends, and then all of them are like, damn it.
Now our men have to come home.
Right?
Damn it.
They were literally the only people who were upset that World War I ended.
Not enough killed in actions in this one area, unfortunately, believe it or not.
Yeah. Were you all
Literally
just
just
sucking
sitting down.
under rocks because, like, all of y'all came back? How does that
This is
happen?
too high of a percentage. I don't understand.
So the surviving men return to Nagareve, probably hoping to get back to normal life. And we see this a lot after large conflicts. Gender roles become blurred out of necessity during war, but in the aftermath, everyone is so desperate just to get back to normal that they take it too far. Like, imagine kind of the 50s housewife, nuclear family deal that happened in the United States. So there's a stronger commitment to traditional values. But also, as we see in the aftermath of large conflicts, those who have tasted freedom and independence don't want to be put back in their place. And that is certainly how the women of Nagareve felt.
Right, like, you're not going to come home and beat me anymore.
Yeah, like, no, we do not do that anymore. Not here.
That ended.
Yeah.
I did your job, and I did my job, and I'm over your bitchin'. Get out the kitchen. Yeah, literally.
Ooh,
Yeah, I love
the
that.
bills are so hard. You have to hit me because your life is so hard.
Suck it up, buttercup. Right? You must be and take care of your children and cook and keep this house clean, bitch.
Tough titty, said the cow to the kitty. I love it.
That is amazing. I want that on, like, a cross stitch on my
Oh
wall.
my god.
a little,
Can you
little
please
cow and a
merchandise
little
that?
cat.
Yeah, I can merchandise that.
Yeah.
I definitely will.
So, like always, the women went to their bestie, Julia, who had a solution. So Julia and her apprentice, who was called Auntie Susie, which just gets really gross when you find out what she's into, they began to boil the arsenic off of fly paper and gave the poison to women upon request. And let's just say the poison was selling like circa 1990s Beanie Babies.
All I can think of is when you say arsenic is the line from Chicago in the song The 10 Merry Murderesses, when she just goes, you know, some guys just can't hold their
arsenic. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
a bunch of little bitches.
This is a literal podcast in which I've used he ran into my knife. He ran into my knife 10 times. So absolutely. Oh my God. I just got so excited in my soul.
Can we just like commend them for creativity? Honestly, like
Right?
the
Like
arsenic
fly
on fly
paper?
paper.
Yeah.
Props to them. That's creative. That's
Talk about
fine.
using what you have.
Honestly, that's
Plus
like
in low-
capitalism.
Yeah, and then in that low of a dose, probably their skin probably looks, you know, very porcelain and great for an extended period of time, based on what beauty products were. You know, added bonus.
So Julia had a few rules for her Poison Club. The first rule of Poison Club is you don't talk about Poison Club. The second rule of Poison Club is, seriously, don't fucking talk about it, guys. The third rule is you couldn't poison children. Number 4, you can only poison your husband if he's abusive. We're not just like gonna get all crazy.
Murder everyone.
Yeah, subtle winks. And number 5, you can't talk about poisoning with women who are in happy marriages because apparently a wrong clock is right at least twice a day.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And thus, the angel makers of Nagariv were born. And unfortunately, these rules stuck for like 10 minutes.
Right, like the first person left, turned right, and was like, guys, there's this thing called Poison Club.
Remember when your husband didn't notice that you had gotten your hair cut? Come with me.
Remember, during intercourse, there was no reciprocation. Off with his head.
Are you sick of going down on him and he refuses to go down on you? I have a solution.
I have a solution to that kind of disrespect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So men around the village and the surrounding area began dropping like flies. And what started out as a drastic measure for getting out of abusive marriages devolved into a simple solution for literally every problem. Obnoxious mother-in-law? Poison. Brother who pushed you when you were 5? Poison. One woman, Maria Varga, reportedly killed 7 members of her family, including her husband, which she considered as a Christmas present to herself.
That is a woman that has problems.
Yeah. Like, treat yourself, but don't do this.
Oh,
treat yourself
you
and
married
don't wish
me
death.
to him? You two are gone.
Yeah.
Oh, I had to be married to him? You're fucking out. I've had enough of you, like,
Right.
for a while.
This is the person.
Oh
that
my God, that's
exploits it and pulls
amazing.
out a fucking list and goes, "All right, guys."
Like,
Now, what am I
imagine-
going to do for my birthday?
Like, can you imagine a burn book for those ladies? Honestly, like, literally,
Oh.
as soon as they're delivering a poison, just literal X's.
Right, they all just
Yeah.
have black books. Food of
This
murder.
is like Mean Girls, but with murder.
True.
Another woman, Marie Cardos, killed her husband, her lover, and her 23-year-old son. So she has a side piece, and apparently he's not cutting it for her, so she kills him too. And she kills her 23-year-old adult son, calling his slow, painful death, quote, delightful.
Well,
Ew.
ew. But, you know, if he takes after his father, based
Yeah.
on the characteristics of men that we've seen in this town, I might be like, ugh.
You know,
Ugh.
Daniel, macaroni necklaces for Mother's Day stop being cute after you're 5. You are 23 years old. You need to step it up.
Get me some nice fucking material that I can turn into a dress or, if you will, a shawl. Like, what is this? you
Right.
cheap
Or maybe
bastard?
like put your underpants in the hamper instead of next to the hamper.
I don't want to see you try to flip them off your toe and catch them every day. It's disgusting.
I
Do
wish
something
you never
about
came-
yourself.
I wish you never came back from the war. I'm gonna take
God.
care of you myself.
Yeah.
Wow, that's some dedication. But
So,
disturbing.
The whole area became known as the murder district, and men began avoiding getting married because they noticed that it was mostly married men who were dying. They didn't really suspect it was the women killing them, but they're like,
No,
man,
because I'm sure
there's
they're like,
something
our
about getting
women are
married.
docile and we can do whatever we want to them. They would never kill us.
Yeah.
What a unique bachelorhood, right? Like, out
Right.
of fear. I kind of like that because that's a tables of turn situation, right? Like,
Yeah.
ah,
Yeah. And to help conceal what was really happening to the men, Julia and Auntie Susie used Susie's relative who worked in the coroner's office. So this relative would change up the cause of death for poisoning victims to avoid suspicion. So sometimes even someone would poison their husband and then like throw them in the river. And then the coroner would be like, well,
Drowning.
they were in the river, they drowned. Let's not ask questions.
So many, you know, and also so many aneurysms. It's like the Kaiser is post doing a scanner sort of thing in this one particular area of the United States. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, just inventing ways to accidentally die. I mean, they have to be so busy.
Like
God.
the Excel sheet that was on so they could like rotate the causes of death appropriately must have been masterful.
Nice and color coded.
Yeah. They've got, what are those notebooks called where you like draw a lot of pictures? You had one for a while.
That's descriptive.
It had like the dots.
Like a dot-lined notebook?
Yeah, but there's a specific
bullet
name.
journal?
A bullet journal. Yeah, they had a bullet journal for death.
Wow.
So the killings would last from 1914 to 1929 before authorities finally stepped in. The poisoners were getting bold and sloppy. Allegedly, a would-be victim caught his wife spiking his drink with poison, and when she was questioned by the authorities, she sold out Julia immediately.
Wow, no loyalty there, huh?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think these women are having like tea together where they're like, guess who I poisoned this week? They're all acting as individual agents, and they're just going to this one person who's giving them the poison, but they're all acting independently. So authorities questioned Julia, who denied any wrongdoing, of course, but then she visited every woman in town whom she had given poison to, telling them that Poison Club was no more. Everyone broke the first two rules, but what Julia didn't know is that the cops were watching her. So she basically gave them a list of everyone who was soup sus.
Like a backwards like informant, right? Like
Right.
Yeah.
She didn't
literally giving them the whole rundown. She's literally hoovering them, basically.
Right.
So can I say, since probably what's his name with the original Night Stalker, this is probably the biggest bit of police work that's been done in the United States ever. And I noticed it's against a bunch of female poisoners. So, you know.
Well, this is in Hungary in like 1911. Like I can't imagine like, you know, the whole story starts pre-World War I. Was there any, how do I put it? Do we know what the disproportionate male population like killed in World War I was by any chance? Because I'm like about to go on a search because I'd be curious.
In Hungary or in general?
I actually don't know that.
In Hungary
that's really interesting.
specifically. That's an excellent
that's what I'm about
question.
to look at real quick. So we are about to give some live data.
That's in essence why I'm also surprised so many men seem to have returned. And I know we've got age gaps here with lovers and with sons and everything, but I feel like a disproportionate amount of people, men specifically, are returning to be horrible, you know, horses' asses within this region. So that's, God, this is the best story ever.
Guys,
you've already blown me out of the water.
It gets better if you can believe it.
This is wild. So to give you context, it actually is really unusual that like all these dudes would have come back, because 1.1 to 1.2 million of like the Austro-Hungarian forces, which considering was roughly around 3.5 million, in addition to 450, like, so the estimates of total losses of the Austro-Hungarian armed forces, 1.1 to 1.2 million, in addition to 450,000 on top of that were deceased in prisoner of war camps, as well as 300,000 soldiers that died as civilians that stayed behind, but they were conscripted and were probably going to go out, but they died in the meantime.
Wow.
They don't have like civilian. Isn't that wild?
So a statistical anomaly on survival, and then it ends up being a statistical anomaly on murder, if you will. So
and the Spanish flu. Remember the Spanish flu? This was the same
right.
time that was wiping. So at the same time, Austria-Hungary had an additional 500,000 men and women killed from famine, cold, and the flu. So
that just gives the coroner a lot to work with when he's falsifying these death certificates.
That's wild. Like those people had like a permanent job. Like, can you imagine? Like, at some point you would just say they died of this. Then just, they were in a river. They drowned. Well, it's better than the other thing. It's better than having their head blown off. Well,
just plain playing Death Plinko every day in the coroner's office on what you're gonna, like, oh
Game
my
of darts,
god,
like, all right, guys.
yeah.
They've got the big basket, like when they do the lotto numbers,
Yeah.
or even bingo.
Yeah. What do we have today?
I love it. I love it.
So that was 28 per 1,000 persons that were automatically killed. And to give you context to that, and this is just Hungary, like they're not Austria and Hungary. So every 1,000 troops, at least 28 killed in battle, at least, which is wild. And their loss ratio was particularly bad. They were second to only Germany as far as the Central Powers World War I military death, to give you context. So I'd like to visualize this in my head of, wow, these women must have been like, now we have to do what the Allies
right?
do,
Like,
right?
whichever ones didn't come home, they're like, we have to take care of the rest of them. Like,
So
you guys were all supposed
better?
to leave and not come back.
Right?
No, exactly. And how does it get better now? Because I'm kind of like, we're already like death. We're already like feeling the energy.
We were supposed to have an upswing in here. No.
Yeah. So we're getting really close to the climactic conclusion. So the authorities decided to keep watching Julia and the other women, and it paid off. So one night, and this is straight up out of a freaking movie, the women gathered in the local graveyard, deciding to swap the headstones of their victims so that when the police tested the bodies for arsenic, they wouldn't be able to trace them back to the women. Because Julia had told everyone, nah, you can't trace arsenic back in an autopsy. And then 10 years into this, she's like, oh shit, they totes can. So they're going to swap the headstone. And the cops jumped up out of the bushes and arrested 38 suspects that night.
I would like to think at least like one or two jumped out of like a freshly dug grave just for an extra,
Ha-ha!
But see, like, had the police not known who they were, that would have been fucking brilliant. Like, swapping the headstones, that would have been a great idea.
Yeah, I think at first they tried to swap the bodies, but they're like, this is a lot of
heavy
work.
lifting.
Yeah, no joke.
A lot of dead weight.
Heavy lifting.
That was good, Kelly. So in the end, 26 women were tried for murder, 7 were sentenced to life in prison, and 8 were sentenced to death, including Auntie Susie. But Julia wasn't in the graveyard that night. Allegedly, she saw the police approaching her home ready to arrest her and poisoned herself. When the police entered her home, her body was surrounded by pots of boiling fly paper. Which I don't know if I totally believe, but what a great visual.
I feel like if she knew the police were already on to her, why would she be doing that? Maybe Susie framed her.
Yeah, it was all Auntie Susie. In the end, the angel makers of Nagarib are suspected of killing over 300 people, though the true number will never be known. So we're kicking off, we're coming onto your podcast, and we're kicking it off with a 300 body count.
Yeah, I feel bad because Emily has the high body counts, and I just have like,
But at this point, you're both owed a banner. It's as if you've come in parade style onto the podcast. I am so very excited. So anything that follows is already covered with a 300 plus question mark immediately after it. I mean, absolutely fantastic. I've got one, you've saved me having to do the research on this myself. 2, it's an absolutely fantastic story. So I cannot wait to see what else you guys have got for us.
I want to add one more thing really quick that didn't make it into my notes, but made it into it when I first told the story. There was a woman who was a little girl at the time all this went down, and she was interviewed, and she said that notably the behavior of the men in the village improved markedly after all this. I'm like, I would think so. Because you're no longer kind of like, I would almost say alpha predator, because they could do whatever they wanted to these women. And I am 100% not condoning murder, but these were very extreme conditions that these women were living in.
Oh.
And when you have no options, you can only act in extremes.
Precisely.
That's a
Extremes
damn good point.
merit extremes Carrie, you have a question.
Yeah. So where did you do the research from? Because like I have to know, because this is actually something, I mean, I've seen a little bit about here and there, but I'm curious, like, where did you pull your info from? Because we got to get that historiography in there.
I was actually able to find some articles, like old newspapers, because when this happened, this was international news.
Oh my.
Yeah, like there was an American newspaper that dubbed them I can't even remember now, but they had like some sassy nickname. I think they called them the Widowmakers.
Sounds about
which is also
right
a pretty good name. But I was able also to find, it was hard because there was a lot of contradicting information because it was so far back. So I tried to pull together a narrative that kind of made sense. Like the story of how they got caught and how the cops finally caught on is a little different depending on where you read it. But I can send you the links because the interviews in particular with the woman who was a little girl when all this was going down, and she had that sassy remark at the end was pretty eye-opening.
Insanely enough, I did not know this story, but I was looking into the mysterious death of Alfred Lowenstein, and it is often hitting Hearst papers and the Times in London at the same time, or they've got revival stories. As I'm looking through, and I came across this the first time also in newspapers going, what? This is amazing. And then just you guys killed that was so good. So I'm super pumped to
I mean, the Angel
first. I'm mad now.
The Angel Makers did the hard part because that story, like, there's not a bad way to tell it. It's just so captivating.
I guess I'll be the sad little palate cleanser in between Emily.
No, I'm very excited because your story is knucking futz. Like,
yeah, it's a weird one. So,
I don't think you get to call yourself the sorbet. I'm sure this will be equally as fantastic.
This actually cream in the Oreo cookie.
Yeah, because I would argue this story is a lot heavier than mine because I think we can all kind of like
going on
cheer on the Angel Makers a little bit or understand where they're coming from. But the woman that you're going to cover
we're pulling her, I think, from one of our
our Halloween
October
episodes.
So I'm covering Juana Barraza, or the Lady of Silence.
Oh. Okay.
Okay. See, it makes me feel better when I get reactions like that.
Okay. I'm pumped.
My little backstory. We're going much more recently than Emily's. So she was born in 1957 in Hidalgo, Mexico. So we're not actually going too far away either. Her parents don't sound like wonderful people. Their names were Trinidad, who was a police officer, and Justa Sampiro, who was an alcoholic prostitute.
Winners.
Of course.
So 3 months after she was born, her mom, Justa, abandoned Trinidad to begin an adulterous relationship with Refugio Sampirio. Note the last name. This was because it was her stepfather that she was having this adulterous affair with. Yep.
I'm just imagining all of the abuse that led to this.
That's true. There had to be a lot.
So she obviously had a really rough child growing up. She never learned to read. She had a really rough relationship with her mother, clearly. Partially because her mom never really spoke to her, like, her whole life. And then partially because her mom was a terrible person who started pimping her out at the age of 12. The first time she did so was for 3 beers. That's it, 3 beers.
That's
Trace survey says.
And the man that she would often pimp her out to would, over 4 years, would abuse her, impregnate her twice. So they had 2 kids together. No, they didn't. I lied. She did get pregnant twice. She was 13 and 16, respectively, and both, thankfully, potentially, resulted in miscarriages. When her mother died, Juana noped the fuck out of there. She's like, I am done. I am not getting stuck here. She ran.
I'm out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Peace.
So she ran and she went to Mexico. She went, I think, more north, to Mexico cities. And there she kind of bounced from guy to guy, job to job, She had 4 children during this time. And also during this time, her firstborn died in a gang shooting. So that's fun.
And
she's just not catching a break.
No, she's
and
having
you know
a
what's wild?
rough life.
Yeah. And she's a boomer. To put into context, she's this age of a boomer. She was born in 57. So like we said, this is modern. Like
Yeah, this is, yep. So one fun thing that happened during this time period is in the 80s and 90s, she actually toured Central Mexico as a masked wrestler, like a lucha libre, which is kind of awesome.
That's a little nuance.
Her name was La Dama del Silencio, or the Lady of Silence, which she chose to reference her own shy personality, apparently. Yeah, hard winks on that one.
Hard winks.
So what first got her into crime is that in 1995 she was short on cash after the birth of her 4th child. She started minor shoplifting, which eventually turned into burglarizing homes, to the point where she
As
actually
it does.
Yeah, everything escalates. She actually ended up hatching a plan with a friend named Araceli, that they were like, okay, we're going to burglar homes together, but we're going to do it from the elderly. They're easy to steal from. So her and her friend started dressing in white clothes, basically pretending to be nurses or social workers, and would go from home to home robbing these elderly. However, Araceli decided to betray her because she was in a relationship with a corrupt federal cop. So one of the times that Juana was by herself robbing a house, this corrupted cop that Araceli was seeing arrested her and was like, okay, you need to pay me, otherwise I'm going to arrest you for all these other burglaries I know you committed, and even though my girlfriend committed them too, we're just going to blame it all on you. Extortion. So she paid him 12,000 pesos in return for not arresting her, which was probably most of her savings, because she only earned about 300 to 500 pesos per fight. Yeah.
And
I tell how much worse it gets.
I know,
Yeah.
just a stepping
It's
stone.
one of those things where it's like you feel so bad for her because with her upbringing, she really didn't I'm not surprised that she became kind of the monster she did. And I feel bad for her in that way, but also, please don't do this.
Yeah,
Forever.
but we can't
This
condone
murder
it.
is
Yeah,
not
exactly.
a coping mechanism. Murder
Yeah,
is
plenty
not
of people
a
grow up in abusive, toxic situations and don't become serial killers.
Right.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Spoiler, so in 1998, Mexico City suddenly began noticing an increase in murders of the elderly, particularly really brutal murders of the elderly. And during this time, the press was like, oh, there's definitely a serial killer, and they dubbed it El Matavejetas, which I never looked up what Matavejetas means,
It's
apparently.
the old lady killer,
Oh, is it?
isn't it?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Let's see. Google. Well, that's funny when you Google it, she's the first result. Yeah, so I think it is old lady killer.
Yeah, because I think that's why I named the episode.
Little old lady killer. That's what it is. More specific.
Yes.
But you'll notice that they called her El Matavejetos, which means that they're assuming that it's a man at this point. And at this point, so this is 1998, the police are actually at this point denying any connection between these crimes. They're like, no, it's just old people and they're dying. And actually, they arrested a number of people for various one-on-one murders, but no, they were like, no. So those earlier murders, those are the ones that are most up for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there she
there's
is.
the picture.
Yes.
Can we put that in the show notes? Because good God, what an
It's a great picture, yeah.
Yeah, if you'll show me it, I can put it in all the social media launches for that. So, perfect.
So those first, from 1998 to about 2002, those are the ones that they're most unsure about if they were actually her. Now they're attributed to her, but according to her first victim, or like her guaranteed first victim, didn't happen until November 25th of 2002. The woman was named Maria de la, oh gosh, they have such long names. Maria de la Luz Gonzalez Ania, an old lady, obviously. She lived alone in an apartment. Apparently, Juana had gone there just to rob her. Gonzalez said something that was insulting. Juana lost it, beat the crap out of her, and then strangled her with her bare hands. Yay.
Yeah. I have a question. Are those earlier murders, I mean, does she follow a serial killer classic pattern? Are those earlier murders maybe a little bit more sloppy than what she wants to claim, that where she kind of starts here and we see that consistent MO? Or is this just...
Her MO's is it all over the place, but the thing that makes people think that they are hers, or all of them were strangled.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah. I have a list that I can send you. I didn't include it in my notes for this because it's a fairly long list.
Yeah,
but there's a bunch of... Yeah. But they have numerous victims from 1995 to 2001, which were robbed, and then she started murdering, and yeah, they just never. I don't really actually have the list of the ones between 1998 and 2002 because
this is a
everyone's just kind of like, it might be her, it might not.
It might be her, but this is a weird thing to say. I kind of feel like she just sort of takes responsibility for the most part for what she does.
Yeah, I mean, it does.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it comes up, but also I might kind of believe most of it. I don't know. I'm on the fence. Yeah,
right. And I could maybe see those earlier ones when they first saw that rise, and maybe that wasn't her, and then she was just like, oh, this is a thing I could do.
Yeah, like
she was inspired.
Yeah.
Oh, this is
my God.
This is a builder.
Yeah.
After her potentially first murder in November, she didn't kill it. There was a gap of about 3 months until she's known to have killed again. And my next line is literally, they think that the story of the Mata Viejitas is what inspired her, not necessarily the other way around. At least in the beginning. Like, they think that, she heard about this and she was like, I can do this.
I'm already breaking into old ladies' homes. Like, it's really not that big of a next step.
Right? She did, however, like, once she got on her roll, she was very methodical about choosing her victims. She did her research. She acquired a list of women that were on government assistance programs, narrowed that down to identify who were elderly women who lived alone, and then went on to create fake credentials to pretend that she was a nurse sent by the government to do like a vitals check because they're on government assistance.
This is fucked. This is like Catch Me If You Can gone.
Right? Like she like crafted this whole narrative. And by the time she left, her victims' blood pressures would always read 0/0. Just in case anyone wanted to know. That's what their vital signs were by the time she left. So, starting in about November 2003, so about a year after her first murder, her crimes went sharply up. And at this point, she had already killed... Hold on, I gotta go back to my other document. 1, 2, 3, 4... She had at least 4 under her belt, 100%. And at this time, the police had some witness testimonies that someone, a tall person with, a rough disposition, was posing as a nurse or a social worker to gain the victim's trust. But the police were kind of like, there was a lot going on politically in Mexico at this time. This was when the federal government and the city council of Mexico City were like not on the same page, and they really didn't like each other. So they kind of used this old lady killer as a weapon against each other. So they were like, no, we're not going to make this information public. Like, no. They finally did a month later. They were like, okay, maybe we should do this.
Us lying about it is not magically decreasing the number of murders, so
No.
maybe we should try talking about it.
So when they finally released it, they also released wanted posters, 2 of them, one which was more feminine than the other. Shocker. They were also only labeled as persons of interest. They didn't mention that they were wearing white clothes. And it wasn't until a year later, so 2004, that the police finally were like, oh yeah, we might have a serial killer on our hands. Like, they mentioned that someone was, like, acting as a nurse, but they were like, yeah, maybe these are all connected. About that. So Juana keeps on killing, and then she meets a lovely man named Jose Francisco Torres Herrera, or El Frijo, which means the bean, which is great. Of course, like me and Emily, prior to you guys getting on, we were discussing, like, was his whole childhood just flicking the bean jokes?
And we literally looked up, how do
to
you
say
say I flick the bean in Spanish?
And it's like, yo,
Hold on.
I'm just gonna look it up again.
Oh, crud. Hold on.
Okay. Oh.
Oh, it just told me last time.
On to that point, I need
It
y'all
doesn't
to
matter.
get the hell out of y'all got to get the hell out of my head, because I was literally about to be, is he bean flicker?
Yeah,
Is that what that was my follow-up. And then before I could get into it, you were ahead of it. Amazing.
Well done.
Man, Google literally just told me the first time, and now it's making it look for it. But I think it was like Yo Motivo El Frijol.
that was just really funny.
Well,
Yo
like the
motivo
baby
el
people.
frijola.
Right.
Don't say that to any Spanish-speaking people. They will probably hit you.
Yeah, right.
They will have
Oh,
every right.
without a doubt. It's like the Arrested Development Job doing like the chicken thing, you
Yep.
know, they're probably going to beat you up. One thing I want to say about her is don't, oh my God, I love that you've seen that too.
Yeah.
What I love about her too is she's such an intersection of sort of an angel of death, but she is a real serial killer and not
Oh, yeah,
an
no,
angel.
she's-
Like she's the
100%.
real deal,
Yeah.
but using that MO, which is very, I think it separates her.
Right.
So
Yeah.
So
it gets worse.
She has mommy issues.
Yeah.
She does.
definitely
She's
does.
literally killing her mother over and
so
over and over.
The Bean became her accomplice. He was also, a taxi driver, which was not helpful to other people.
Get
It
away,
was
man.
very helpful for her because suddenly she had a much larger increase in range and how often she was killing and what times she was killing at. Because she used to be killing during the daytime. Now she was killing at the nighttime. And, like she had someone to drive her so she could go out of the city center.
It's
was
like
a lot.
murder Uber.
So the turning point, yeah, it really was. He was murder Uber.
Yep.
He was murder Uber. Oh my God.
Moober.
Moober?
Yeah.
Murder.
Moober. Murber.
Ooh, I like that one, murder.
Murder Uber.
And then if you
yeah.
throw a sprinkle of Dahmer in there, it's Merber Eats. So, do whatever.
So the turning point was when she killed a woman named Carmen Camila Gonzalez Miguel, who was 82 years old at the time. This is September 28th, 2005. So this is only 16 years ago. Jeez, math.
Yeah.
The reason this was a turning point was because she was an upper-class woman and a mother of a prominent Mexican criminologist, who then, that criminologist, really got on the police's butt and was like, guys, clearly something is going on. They're criminologists, so they probably looked at everything and were like, guys, there's clearly a serial killer.
Yeah.
So
What are you, a criminologist? Yes.
So
Like back in the day, he's hanging out with Robert Ressler and like John Douglas. Like, I've read these books. It's
Yeah,
clearly
exactly.
a pattern.
Exactly.
Like, oh my God.
So they came up with a special operation to kill this old lady, or not to kill, to catch the old lady killer, which I love because they named it Operación Parques y Jardines, which is Operation Parks and Gardens.
which is actually alternate title for Parks and Rec.
Right? Operation Parks and Rec.
Oh my god.
I just think it's funny. I don't know why they like. Were they just like old ladies, Parks and Gardens?
Yeah.
Like, why don't they just call it like Operation Old Lady Killer?
Let's give this the fluffiest, most pleasant name possible. Like, it sounds like everyone's about to get together for a flash mob and drink tea in the park. Like,
I'm actually going to fill you in on why they probably named it
Oh,
Operation
okay.
Parks and Gardens. So, not only did officer patrols increase in areas where the killer had killed before, they printed pamphlets advertising the elderly to be wary of strangers. So we're stranger endangering the elderly now.
Yep.
They put out more sketches, and then this is probably why they called it Operation Parks and Gardens. This is something the public did not like that they did. The police paid elderly women to act as bait in parks
And gardens.
No, just parks.
Oh.
But I mean, there's probably gardens in the parks. But yeah, like,
Oh my god.
people were very happy that they did that.
Yeah.
That was a very, like, really? Like, you're going to use elderly people as bait? That's like using children as bait. Like,
Yeah.
you just don't do that.
Grandma, where are you going today? Oh, I'm going to wander around the park and see if someone tries to kill me.
Right.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, well,
They cost me 50 pesos.
the police asked, and they were just so nice about it.
That's in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm mixing my old lady with Minnesotan.
Yeah.
You sound like 50% of what I talk to during the day now.
Old lady Minnesotans.
Yeah.
So in 2006, Juana strangled for the last time.
Thank God.
She strangled an 82-year-old woman with a stethoscope this time. She really she started bringing props along. She had to act the part, and she was like, I have to. No, there were several other stethoscope stranglings in her run, but this one was the last.
She really used her time with the groundlings. She really used that training to its most effectiveness.
The reason this would be her last is because as she was leaving the scene, a woman who happened to be renting a room in the victim's home, which she probably, Juana would have no way of knowing, I'm sure, came home and found the body. Luckily, she didn't just go, oh my God, you're old, and, you maybe just died naturally. So she called the police, and between her and other people that were in the area, they were able to arrest Juana before she left the general area, before the bean picked her up and they took off.
So that was the end of the UCB theater, murder improv she's got going with props, she's freaking Carrot Top of murder.
So at minimum, she was active from November of 2002 to 2006. So at minimum, 4 years. Half of it because police incompetence. So during her questioning, Juana confessed to having strangled one woman, for sure. She kind of hinted that maybe there were more, but she can outright confess to one. And she said that she committed the crime out of a sense of anger at elderly women in general. So, mama issues. She stood by the fact that she wasn't the only person doing the killings, but there has never been any evidence outside of that. They found her fingerprints at quite a few of the murders, and no one else, other than the victims, no one else's. So if someone helped her, it was few and far between, probably not at all. So when she was confronted by the press as they were transferring her and bringing her to and from prison and whatnot, she said, with all due respect to the authorities, there are several of us involved in extortion and killing people, so why don't the police go after the others too? I think she was just trying to keep the public scared so that, maybe they wouldn't be as harsh on her.
I think she gets off on it. It's spreading out the responsibility. Well, I'm not the only one speeding.
Right.
Why'd you have to pull me over?
She's trying to pull a bystander effect moment of, there's a lot of us.
Why are you picking on me?
Why are you picking on me? Jeez, I'm not the only person killing old ladies.
God.
So with all the evidence they collected, they were able to charge her with 16 different murders, though she is believed to have killed upwards of 49 people.
Damn.
Over 4 years. So that's over 10 people a year.
Yeah.
She continued, to death. She continued to say that she only did one of the killings, but she was convicted and sentenced to 759 years in prison.
Sounds like a purgatory sentence. Honestly,
right.
That would be probably fitting.
Yeah, I agree. So when she was arrested, it came as a surprise to a lot of Mexicans and people of Mexico City, because they all thought the killer was male. During this whole time, they kept calling him, old lady killer, but with L. They never switched it to law, which would be the female. And so when she was arrested, 48 years old at the time, someone that they had known professionally as the Silent Lady, which that kind of just that's a new.
It adds a new element to her
really
wrestler name, her lucha libre name.
But I mean, it also people started to realize this is why witnesses were having a hard time, because she was very masculine, and so that's why. And she had, at least in the lucha libre picture, in the pictures I've seen, she has a short haircut, so I think people were like, oh, this is why they, in the sketches, one was a lot more feminine, one was a lot more masculine, because she kind of rode that line of being a more masculine woman. And it actually came out later that the police had looked into homosexual males and transgender individuals, and they had actually arrested a bunch of people, particularly in the transgender community, because they were like, well, clearly it's a feminine masculine person, who else could it be?
Someone with a gender identity that they could not define into a specific box. So, hey, while we're denying there's a serial killer, let's just attack LGBTQ plus people while we're at it.
Sounds like an awful twisted version of Round Up the Usual Suspects is what it
exactly.
sounds like.
And what's actually crazy is when they actually held up one of the sketches next to her, she was actually a pretty damn close match. She had the close cropped hair, which was blonde, a mole in the exact same spot. So that's usually a giveaway. She also obviously had the stethoscope on her that she strangled. She had pension forms and was carrying a card identifying her as a social worker when she was detained. So they were yeah.
So
I love that the fact
chilling with her, an accessory.
Right.
It blows my mind the fact that she was a more masculine looking woman threw people off so much, even though it totally looked like her. It's not that it didn't look like her. They were just but this feminine person looks so masculine, so I don't know what to make of this.
So that's her whole story.
And she sucks.
And she is still alive. But I did little sections. So my next section is the profile of the people she killed. It's short. So they were all women over the age of 60. Like I said, most lived alone. She bludgeoned and or strangled them before robbing them. The chief prosecutor in Mexico City said, quote, "This killer has a brilliant mind, being quite clever and careful, and suggested that the killer probably struck after gaining trust of the intended victims," which we know, she did. The authorities also believe that she was brilliant because she was a psychopath who felt no remorse, which I'm normally those don't necessarily go hand in hand, but I guess psychopaths generally have a high IQ, but...
Oh, and I was going to say, you can tell she's brilliant because of all the, I want to call it artistry.
Narrative.
Yeah, she was clever. She was cunning, and that's what made her so lethal.
Right.
She knew how to manipulate people and to prey on people who would trust her and how to get them to trust her.
Right. And then obviously Juana associated the elderly victims with her mother, but she also believed that she was helping society by killing them.
Shut up. No one asked you.
Right. So she is considered like, so there's like categories of killers, and there's categories specifically of female killers. And even though like she was doing it mostly out of just like anger, particularly toward her mother, she is placed in the caregiving category of serial killers because she posed as a nurse or a social welfare worker to gain the trust of her victims. Which is interesting. Police also found that some of her victims were abused with like beaten abuse, like, and so they're like clearly like she's reliving some of her childhood trauma, you know, like beating her mother like she used to be beaten, kind of a thing. Like I said, she denied involvement in the end, she confessed to 4 murders total and denied involvement in any other. So she was tried in the spring of 2008. So that's not that long ago.
Right before we graduated from high school.
The prosecution alleged that she was responsible for as many as 40 deaths, so that number might actually be 49. On March 31st, she was found guilty on 16 charges of murder and aggravated burglary. 11 of those counts were murder. So she was only charged with 5 burglary sentences. So like I said, she was sentenced to 759 years in prison. But sentences in Mexico are generally served concurrently, but the max sentence under Mexican law is only 60 years. So I think she's only going to... I read that and I'm like, I don't know what that... I think that means she's only going to serve 60 years, but she's going to serve it in prison. Like, she's not going to get bail. She's not... And I mean, she was 48 when she was arrested, so let's be honest, she's going to die in prison. But she is currently still alive, as far as I have been able to find. Like, unless, like, they just haven't, like, updated that she died in prison. I mean, she's only 63.
Yeah, she just turned 63 this last December.
Yep. But yeah, so that's Juana.
It's like, how would she feel if somebody targeted her
kind
now?
of screwed up.
Yeah,
yeah, right.
Not really.
You have entered your target demographic. How do you feel?
right.
Yeah.
She can't look in mirrors anymore because she just gets angry.
To bludgeon herself, yeah.
She's gonna strangle herself. It's gonna be a thing.
But female serial killers are so rare, and especially the kind that will actually be so hands-on with their killing, like she was.
Yeah, as I say, strangling is almost always a little thing,
and it's
because
sexualized.
Very rarely will you see women do face-to-face murders.
Yeah,
Bludgeoning and strangling, which is too unique. It's
right.
fascinating.
And as I like flipped through my notes from the last time I did this, yeah, like one of them had been tied up. She used her hands quite often, but she also used sometimes what was ever lying around, like a cord or, you know, like the stethoscope. One of them was smothered with a pillow and then strangled. Like her thing was definitely like strangling. That was definitely her MO. But then, yeah, like, depending on who she was killing, like, it really, like, varied on maybe how much time she had. But, yeah, her victims ranged from, technically, one of them was 59, but that's one of the ones that they're, like, it might have been her, it might not have been. But, so if we're taking that person out, yeah, they ranged from 60 to 92. Was the oldest one she killed.
Can you imagine making it to 92 and then this bitch shows up on your front door?
On your, with their fucking stethoscope, being like smart. And
I'm here to make sure you continue to get the government assistance you need. Let me check your vitals. Like, of course you're going to be like, yeah, come on, I need that government assistance. Like, so sad. But yeah, so... That was the Little Old Lady Killer, or the Lady of Silence.
Yep.
Wow.
That's a fantastic one, just because of it's like you said, it's such a unique MO, especially specifically for
like, and you can tell, like, with an MO like that, she clearly had so much anger toward these women that, probably represented, her mother in her eyes. Like, and so like just the psychology behind that, which I'm huge on, like just, like that, she's, like Emily said earlier, she's basically just killing her mother over and over and over again.
Oh, well, yeah, it's,
Especially since I partially wonder if she didn't feel like justified because her mom died of psoriasis, like maybe she was like, no, my mom didn't die in a brutal enough way to satisfy my anger.
Psoriasis got her before I could.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost a female Ed Gein sort of vibe. Like you didn't actually get to do it yourself, and so, or some like Bundy-esque, it like there are so many mommy issues there. It's ridiculous, and it's just so interesting that it's out of a female.
And yeah, there is like you said, Bundy-esque vibes, because he would help people, ask people for help and then do terrible, terrible things.
Bludgeoning and strangling.
Exactly. Hey, that sounds familiar. But yeah, so it was very similar.
Oh God, I'd heard of her, but I didn't at all know the specifics, and that's just fascinating knowing that, because she is unique.
Well, that's really what I kind of go up, especially for like our October Halloween episodes. Like I try to like look through lists and like of more obscure ones, and I don't even remember how I found her, but yeah, it came up as like Lucha Libre, like masked murderer, and I was like, what? And then I got into it, and I'm like, this is so much more than that. I'm like, this has nothing to do with Lucha Libre, like, and it was super fascinating, and it's great because while this isn't like super publicized, it's recent enough that there is enough stuff, so like it wasn't like you've said before, like sometimes if they're too well known, there's just so many conflicting sources and you don't know what, like you don't know which pieces to pick from, whereas like I feel like she was almost the right balance of recent yet old enough and obscure enough that there was, not a ton of stuff, but enough that I could form a full narrative.
You've got one central narrative. Yeah, you could form it out of that and pick the midway. Kara, yes, you have a question.
Yeah, so I think it's super interesting, obviously that this one's like kind of it's like a true crime hybrid, right? Do you think she's a target in prison, if that makes sense? Because you know how like with
people who hurt children,
yeah.
I
just wonder if
I don't know
higher security for that.
That's a good question.
I would imagine, so she's probably in a women's prison, and I would imagine a lot of women in prison probably don't have great relationships with their own mothers.
Yeah, I would.
I bet there is some ability to empathize with not liking your mother or having mommy issues, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
That's interesting. I never thought about that.
I would add she's buff when she goes in. She's now in prison.
Way she's not.
Think even at 63, you might not want to like jump on her.
She's probably that person in the corner of the yard just like pumping iron all day.
Yeah.
I will say one of the sources that I pulled some information from was there was a really short Inside Edition YouTube video. It's only like, it looks like it was 7 minutes. So it's real short. But it was still really interesting to like, especially Inside Edition, like that's a bigger known thing. Like it was just interesting to hear them talk about it, even if it was just like a little tiny, very short snippet of like
good source, highly recommend.
Yeah, it was good. It was something interesting to watch, because they pull all her photos together. So like, versus where or not even half, 92% of what I normally look at when I'm doing my research is just writing. So it was nice to finally be able to throw like a video in there and like see, the sketches that they were talking about and, stuff like that.
That costume, like.
Right? Yeah.
Costume. Man, she almost looks like a pink Power Ranger, to be honest.
I know.
I was going to say she looks like a Power Ranger villain reject.
Yeah. It's like a pink Power Ranger with like a Mardi Gras mask.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's holding a belt in the picture, so clearly she must have won. Like, I didn't go super deep into her wrestling past. Like, she must have won a title at some point.
why would you go into the wrestling path? Because believe it or not, that's not the most interesting thing about her, which is hard to believe. God, that's an interesting
That adds
one.
an extra nuance to it, really. Like,
right? Like it's just kind of that weird like thing that you're like, oh yeah, and she was a lucha libre person for like 10 years.
It's like, oh, by the way, John Wayne Gacy was also a clown, and that somehow makes him creepier.
Well, I also
it does.
the reason the lucha libre thing, at least for me, like it's not the fact that she was a lucha libre, it's the fact that her name when she was a lucha libre was the Lady of Silence. I'm like, that is just
Gross.
Disturbing.
super fitting. You know, and I mean, that was like 20 years before she started murdering people, but I'm still like, was there any part of her in her head that's like, I'm bringing back my old name, bitches?
Right.
She's like Dean Coral, the Candyman, and that Dean Coral was the Candyman.
Yeah.
We do have one more story for you, and this one's a bit different than the two we've already done. This is going to be our palate cleanser, where we can all feel a little less terrible about the world. Like, just like this much. Just this much.
Like 2%?
God, those bastards are close. So, I'm going to be wrapping this up by covering Ludmila Pavlichenko, who has one of just the most best names to say.
Name.
I always feel so sophisticated saying her name.
What I love is
What a name.
it's foreign, but it's actually easy to pronounce.
Yeah. It's doable.
So rare in this case. So
Especially
yes,
in that
amazing.
part of the world. Yeah.
So Ludmila Pavlichenko was born on July 12, 1916. So we're kind of going back to that time period for me.
Back again.
In Ukraine. Growing up, there was a boy in Ludmila's neighborhood who was basically the obnoxious kid that we all grew up with, who's like, nah, I'm better than you. And this kid was learning to shoot and would taunt Ludmila, being like, I'm so much better at shooting than you. Nah.
I'm in my head. This is in no way actually meaning anything to anyone. And I don't mean this to insult Steves, but for some reason that is the name that me and my husband have like latched onto as a terrible person. Like, we'll go, Steve!
Oh,
so
yeah.
when you read this story,
I was
in my
about to say,
name, that kid's name is Steve.
Yeah.
in my head, he's a Trevor, and he says a lot of stuff
Ooh.
like, "My dad could beat up your dad."
Yeah.
That's how
That's
it
everybody
goes.
has
Yeah,
that
it's
like
bad.
one name. Trevor, Steve.
Chad.
It's
So,
always the kid
Chad.
put his mouth on the water fountain. Water
Yeah.
fountain kid.
Yeah,
You're like, that's gross. Like, it's gross for me and it's gross for you.
This child was an amalgamation of all of the shitty kids that we grew up with. So this childhood bullying bullshit really lit a fire under Ludmila, and she began to take shooting lessons too. She's like, challenge accepted, you little shit. And she was an incredible shot, and she won tons of civilian shooting awards.
Naturally gifted.
Yeah, you know she nailed that kid in the ass with a BB one.
Yeah,
one
right?
day.
Like from like 10 miles.
Yeah.
Take that!
So this uncanny shooting ability really came in handy when World War II broke out.
Ben, you're touching both.
Yeah. Back-to-back world wars over here. So at the time, 25-year-old Ludmila was attending university, and the Germans bombed her school. And not one to let someone get the better of her, obviously. Ludmila went to the Red Army and applied to be a soldier. And they straight up laughed at her and told her, "Oh, you mean nurse? That's not how you say it. It's nurse."
That's not how you. That's a weird way to spell nurse.
Yeah.
How
Or they're like,
incredibly Nancy Wake of her.
Yeah. Or they're like, be a nurse or something else supportive. And like, here's the thing. High praise for war nurses, but that is not what Ludmila wanted to do.
That's what she was good at.
It's not what she was good at. I bet she was a terrible nurse. And the fact that she was being told, oh, this is all you can do because you're a woman, did not fly with her. Luckily, she had come prepared. She takes her box of civilian shooting awards and dumps them out on the recruiter's desk and said again, I want to fight.
She was like, I know how men are.
Damn.
This guy's a douchebag.
Yeah.
I'm just bringing my box with me.
So the recruiter relented, and she was assigned to the Red Army's 25th Rifle Division and stationed in Odessa, which was part of the Ukrainian SSR at the time.
So
And
not Texas.
Not Texas.
Ah,
Sorry.
God, like even war wouldn't go to our like Odessa, Texas. Even that, like it. The Second World War is like, oh no, we're done.
It's
Sir,
another
we don't want
dark
that.
area.
What's
we
that
don't
dark
go
area
to.
over there, sir? That's Odessa. We don't go there.
Yeah, no, nobody. Mm-mm.
So she joined the ranks of around 2,000 female snipers in the Red Army, who all, I assume, had to dump out their shooting awards on people's desks.
Right. Or just come in like fully decorated, like, bitch.
But only 500 of these female snipers would live to see the end of the war.
Oh.
Ooh,
I bet
that's
they
a
were.
serious
I
reduction.
kind of wonder if they were like, okay, you know, like we have this mission that's going to be really dangerous. Send one of the women.
Yeah, well, I mean, being a sniper, you were a high-value target.
I mean, you were the first target if they could find you.
And also, you had to rip off your medals and pin them to the nerd that told you couldn't shoot. So you're probably already a target, you know.
People are not fans of you.
Yeah, no, they're not.
Now, just because Ludmila was allowed to join the Rifle Division, that didn't mean she got a gun. And that's just straight up false advertising.
Right. It's in the name.
Yeah.
God damn.
There's a little asterisk next to rifle, and in fine print at the very bottom,
Maybe.
no rifles guaranteed.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
No, it'd be BB gun with the
Yeah.
asterisk. What the fuck did they
So-
expect her to do? Like, how is she supposed to kill people?
Well, so thanks to a weapon shortage and sexism, because they definitely weren't going to give her anything, Ludmila was only given a frag grenade and told to dig trenches.
I hope they gave her like a shovel too, because I feel like digging
No, she
with
had
a
to dig with the frag
is
grenade.
Soup's dangerous.
She's sitting with one hand, holding the frag grenade up with the
Yeah.
other, and she's like, okay.
My pile's getting a little high over here, guys.
So one day, one of Ludmila's comrades was injured in battle and handed her his Mosin Nagant bolt-action rifle because he was too injured to use it. Ludmila underwent what she called baptism by fire when she used the rifle to make her first 2 kills. This impressed her comrades and her commanding officers so much that they would not let Ludmila go without a rifle
Well, I'm
again.
sure, because they were like,
Hell
not only could she shoot, but she picked up a rifle mid-battle and killed 2 people like immediately. Like,
Yeah.
they were like, yeah, okay, you can keep that gun. Plus, there probably was a little bit of, you're gonna kill me if I try to take that gun away.
Well, unfortunately, I think in that battle, rifles opened up.
As happens.
Yes.
And then some in that particular battle. A
That's
lot of
true.
spaces open.
So Ludmila wasn't just accurate, she was super creative. She would rig mannequins as decoys and plant strips of cloth to flutter in the wind to distract the enemy. Ludmila even weaponized the weather, using the rain to muffle her gunfire as she took out her targets.
Well, and it also helps with muzzle flash. Like, you're not gonna see
Yeah.
it as well in the rain.
So her success made her a valuable target to the enemy. In one instance, Ludmila was trying to find a perch in a tree when she was spotted and fired upon. The shot missed, but Ludmila pretended to be hit and dropped out of the tree, falling 12 feet to the ground.
God
She knew-
damn.
Yeah. So she knew that if she moved, the enemy would know she was still alive and fire again. So Ludmila laid there for hours until night fell, and she made her escape.
Like, whenever I hear that, all I can think of is I'm like, you're probably pissing your pants at some point. Like, this is an incredible feat. Don't get me wrong, but my brain is still like, if you just have to lay there and you're like, that would suck.
Yeah.
Especially,
I'm also
are we still in Russia? Like,
Yeah.
that would just suck in general.
It's cold.
Yeah,
slightly disturbed that your childhood in Texas, at least in the very rural parts of Texas where I grew up, is, despite not loving socialism, ironically like that of, this lady's right here.
Right?
You know, you don't want to fall out of a tree. You never know. You never know what, everybody's playing Red Dawn. So it's like a reverse raising of this. So that's ironic in a lot of different ways. So that's crazy. But yeah, I would have you have to be so scared, but I don't know. She might be just that hard. I've always wondered. She just seems hard, man.
She does.
She does, man.
Yeah.
She just seems rock and roll.
She had a pretty rough upbringing. She got married when she was 16 and had a child, and the marriage only lasted for like a year. And the guy was a much older doctor, and it doesn't sound like it was a good situation. So she's finally kind of recovering from that. She's going to get her education, and the Nazis bomb her school. And she's like, can I just get a fucking break here, you guys?
God damn it.
Why is everyone trying to wreck my shit?
You know, so she had some anger too, but
Yeah.
more appropriately placed anger.
Yeah. In one story from her service, Ludmila found herself in a 2-day-long duel with another sniper. Now, sniper duels are not exciting, but they are long and terrifying.
It's more pissing your pants.
Yes, there's a lot of peeing your pants. Any wrong move could give your position away and leave you with a bullet in your brain. Ludmila never lost a duel. Ludmila had a hugely successful military career, rising through the ranks to becoming a household name in the Soviet Union. The enemy even paid attention to her, nicknaming her, and I love this, Lady Death.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Get it, girl. Oh my God. If that's your code name in Berlin, you know you're doing well.
Right?
I wish Nancy and her could have been like friends, you know?
Right?
Like shit.
That would have been cool. That's how
The White Mouse and a Lady of Death. Oh my God.
Well, and
I
something
can't think of her
interesting,
name now.
in another episode, we covered the Night Witches, which were an all-female air
Yes.
squad. Hell yeah. And they got the nickname the
Yes.
Night Witches from the Germans. And I'm like, you guys are great with nicknames.
Terrible at a lot of other things.
Awful people.
Great with nicknames.
Really quickly, think about how bad the United States government generally is with naming operations and giving things nicknames. Terrible people. Great at operations and nicknames. Just they don't have a project. Oh, paperclip. It's the first thing I saw.
God damn.
You're right. They have the Night Witches. Oh, it's all
Lady
they're all Brothers Grimm, like operation novels. It's fantastic. I will say one thing.
So while she was defending Sevastopol from German invasion, enemy forces actually tried to bribe Ludmila with chocolate if she defected.
Chocolate?
Wow.
Seriously?
Yeah, and
Wasn't
at
hers rationed in that time?
And at first I'm like, do they just really think that all women are dying for chocolate? But this was a really rare commodity during wartime, but still.
So, talking about women that should have been friends, I like to think that Ludmila and Maria Oktyabrska
Oh shit.
would have been
Yeah.
friends. Because they actually fought in the same war and maybe on the same front. So I'm just going to say,
Herstory
Herstory
had canon. They're
they were
friends.
best friends.
Can we write a fan fiction,
Yes.
like a historical fan fiction, please? Nothing
Yes.
weird,
Yes.
just like fucking killing Nazis. Like,
Right?
Just
It
an
would be
awesome
great.
story.
Tank and a sniper.
honestly, this is the new Netflix that needs to happen.
I'm
between
down
the
for
two of them.
that.
Yes.
I've been watching 11/22/63 with
Oh,
my
shit,
boyfriend. And it's about James Franco going back in time to prevent the Kennedy assassination. And he runs into all these notable figures. Like he accidentally bumps into Jack Ruby. And of course I'm like, oh my God. And I want something like that, but I want to run into all these badass like female soldiers.
Right?
Oh, my name's Ludmila. What's up? Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Just faint.
Yeah, right. Just pass out.
So Ludmila's military career was tragically cut short in 1942 when she was hit by shrapnel from a mortar shell and injured. Because Ludmila had become such a famous figure, the Soviets decided to permanently pull her from action rather than risk her being killed, because that would have been devastating for morale, not
Ooh.
only within the military, but within the country. By this
So-
time, Ludmila had 309 confirmed kills.
Hell yeah. Can I just point
How
out too,
hard do you have to be that the Soviet Union's like, can't risk you?
that's what I'm fucking
Come on
saying, man.
home.
Right?
You read my
Listen
mind,
to that
Jessica.
kill count. Oh
I
my God.
To add, the interesting thing too to me is it shows like obviously different situations in World War One and Two, but my God, like some people have learned, okay, you pull them when they're useful, use them as propaganda. But my God, yeah, you're no joke, Jessica. The fucking Soviets were like, shit, we can't risk it.
And to be that effective in a country in dire need of mechanization shows how very effective she was with the tools she had. Because my God, like that's amazing. That is truly amazing.
Who
Wait,
else
is
did
this
we
the one that
cover?
visits? Holy shit, is this the one that visits?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Who else did we cover that
Yes.
was a Soviet soldier and they used her to get men to fight?
Oh, that was in World War One. That was Maria begins with a B. I think we covered her in episode 50 something.
I'm thinking of a Thule Society, Maria, like different.
Maria
different
Machkatrova.
They used the
Yeah.
fighting weapon.
Yeah, so she was the soldier in World War One Russia, and basically they used her to. I mean, Ludmila does the same thing.
I know, but I just remember that's who I was thinking of. I was like, they just use her to shame the Russian men into fighting.
Yep. If this woman can do it, what's your excuse?
Anyways,
walking around Game of Thrones style, but like, yeah.
So while Ludmila wouldn't return to the fighting, the Soviet Union knew she would be a great propaganda tool and sent her to tour the United States. So here's a quick little history lesson for context. The United States had joined World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. And originally, the U.S. was fighting in the Pacific and North Africa and Italy. The eventual goal was to invade German-held territory in Northwest Europe. However, the Soviet Union, who was trying to push back the Germans on their own, they wanted a second front in the northwest of Europe open sooner because I mean, Germany got like all the way in there before they were able to be pushed back.
They basically
it's like
almost got
penetration.
to the capital, and then they froze to death.
Yeah. So part of Ludmila's job was to encourage American support of this.
They learned a very valuable lesson, the Germans, that Moscow is quite a great way from St. Petersburg, which everybody always seems to be baffled by. But I love that she's like beating the bandwagon almost for the Soviets in the same way that Churchill is beating it like himself via the BBC and with diplomatic relations.
Exactly.
She's that impressive, guys, that she can be sent on a world tour of like, check this out, pussies.
Do we
like
know
kind of
if she
sort
met
of
Stalin?
thing.
What was that?
We know if she met Stalin.
I don't know if she did. I know she got some awards, but I don't know if they were personally awarded to her by, Grandmaster Chief asshole.
Beautiful.
It was not eloquent, but it was accurate.
Right.
She got the Order of Lenin for what that's worth. I have no idea in context, but Gold Star of the Hero of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, that's one of I think their top honors.
Mm-hmm. So Ludmila started on a speaking tour of the United States talking about the horrors of war, the travesties committed by the Germans, and how hard her fellow countrymen were fighting. She also took the strategy of emasculating American men into action, saying, quote, "Gentlemen, I am 25 years old and I have killed 309 fascist invaders by now. Don't you think, gentlemen, that you have been hiding behind my back for too long? Mic drop. Done."
Absolutely love that. I like that she's like, she's emasculating them, but she's like, gentlemen. Like, she's being like
patronizing.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
She might as well have said, you're building cars for a fascist. You're animating cartoons for a fascist. Get over yourselves. Come on, let's do that.
So on her tour, Ludmila's womanhood and appearance were constantly questioned because, of course, they had to be. This battle-tested badass was asked if she used face powder, if she curled her hair,
God damn it.
and if she worried her uniform made her look fat.
Can I go back in time
was
to
it
just
not
punch
tailored
reporters?
enough? Did Chanel and Hugo Boss not tailor it enough for her? Like, was that not to American taste at that time? Oh my
How
god!
do you get blood and mud out of your boots?
Who's your husband?
I diet.
That's
Just
what
like a
I got
spot
$20.
remover?
She got asked that at some point. Are you married? Do you have kids?
Well, actually, she was. Here's a tragical side note that I didn't put in my note. She
Tragical?
was married. Tragic little side note.
Oh, I heard tragical. I'm like, what does tragical mean?
It's both. So she did meet a man in the military and they got married,
right.
and he was killed in front of her, and she tried to drag his body back from the front lines.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So she was married. Yeah.
And she was married previous to that, too.
Yeah.
To an asshole.
Please tell that like story to some bitch from Marie Claire that's asking her, "What's your makeup like?" Whatever. She's
Like,
just
wow.
so hard. I love her so much. She's amazing. That's the worst thing I've heard in a while,
But
though.
if you think
And
about
that's
it-
saying something.
If you think about it, that was excellent propaganda for the Soviet Union, because look how fucking assholey they made the United States look, like pre-Cold War, mind you, right? Like it made them look callous, like they didn't give a rat's ass. Consumerism, capitalism on crack, and like to the point where you're like disparaging literal like boss heroes. My God, and you know it's because she was a female, because you know,
100%.
like, I mean, the society that like would fawn over the male equivalent, like Sergeant York in like World War I, right? If she were Sergeant York but Russian and male, you know they would have even been a little less shitty with her.
Oh, like,
Right.
he would have probably gotten like parades and, you know, shook hands with the president and
one of the great juxtapositions of that is that while the Germans that she had terrorized called her Lady Death, the American press called her Girl Sniper.
Ugh.
So you mean the fucking Nazis had a better nickname for her than the Americans did?
Because they were scared of her.
Yeah, the Nazis were terrified.
Meanwhile, the United States is like, oh, I guess
It's a
she
girl.
shoots people. I guess
Yeah.
she shoots
Meanwhile,
people.
the United States has thoroughly buried its head in the sand, isolationist style, and refuses to acknowledge the fact that, one, women are as BA as men, two, she's getting the job done, and three, that anything else in the world is going on other than what they specifically want to be going. Lady Sniper. Oh my God. That's
Girl Sniper. Like, not only is that demeaning, like, because she's 25 at this time.
Yeah.
Like, girl. The fact that they used girl.
They infantilize her.
Oh, God, that makes me angry.
So luckily, though, Ludmila found an ally in First Lady and other Herstory badass Eleanor
Hell yes.
Roosevelt. What?
Hell yeah.
The two became close friends, but after Ludmila had raised the money and stirred the support for her cause that the Soviet Union wanted her to, they called her home.
Of course.
So in 1943, Ludmila was discharged with the rank of major, but despite her incredible service and having won some of the highest awards in the Soviet Union, Ludmila was forgotten by the country that she had served so fiercely. And the war had been...
They did have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, but
that's still tragic.
It was
like,
a kind of a shit show. But
you need to fucking memorialize people like her.
The war had been incredibly hard on Ludmila. She had lost comrades, witnessed unspeakable horrors. She wrote a memoir, and there's this really long quote in which she describes some of the atrocities that the Nazis were committing, and it is really rough. She had almost lost her own life, and like I mentioned earlier, she did lose her husband in front of her. She had met her husband Alexei, a fellow sniper during the war, and he was killed in battle while she desperately tried to rescue his body from the battlefield. Along with a variety of health problems, Ludmila suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, and struggled with alcoholism as a result. She received little to no support as a veteran and died a painful death in 1974 at 58 years old. But because that's a huge bummer, I want to end this on a little bit of a high note. before her death, and this is during the Cold War, Eleanor Roosevelt took a trip to the Soviet Union, and she's got her handlers with her, and she's like, where's my bestie Ludmila? We got to chat. And there's like a Soviet representative, and she's got like her people with her, and they're sitting in Ludmila's crappy little apartment, and it's all just very like quiet and staunch because they're being watched. And at one point, Ludmila's like, I'm gonna run to the kitchen really quick and grab something, and like pulls Eleanor into the kitchen with her, and then they finally get to just like hug it out and have the reunion that they really wanted. And I'm not crying, you're crying. You're crying. Oh. So they did get to reunite because Eleanor was one of her chief supporters and confidants when she was in the United States. And they were friends, and they were torn apart by war. And
Yeah, she's like 58.
yeah,
She suffered from a stroke. I looked it up because I was like, what was her actual cause?
well, she was very sick for a long time,
so then she had a stroke.
and yeah, she had a stroke.
Aw.
Yeah, so not only are they friends, she's beating the tom-tom for the war effort, they become friends and then immediately find themselves following the end of the war enemies.
Yeah,
Right.
Despite being on the same side during the conflict. Oh my God. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
You're not crying.
guys.
I'm not crying.
I'm
You're crying.
Exactly.
Guys, I'm hyped. They only published her memoirs in English 2 years ago for the first time,
Wow.
which tells you the lasting impact of the Cold War, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Yeah.
2018 was the first English translation. Like, I had to fact check that because I was like, are you serious?
Yeah, right.
But
Like,
no
wow.
joke. Like, can you imagine, like, in any other, like, global period, you would think 309 kills for a female sniper, that's pretty remarkable regardless of where she's from. But the fact that
Right.
even the US couldn't give a shit, well, that's
History
Cold War.
goes to the victors. And unfortunately, we were
Yeah.
kind of assholes.
Oh, kind of. Also,
You know, I'm being nice.
one, request anything from the Kremlin museums, and an entire propaganda war very clearly exists back to the time of imperialism, which blows my freaking mind because in a way they're better students of history than we are. And two, like, of course we're horrible. We've got the Dulles brothers following JFK around like as if they're Ridley Scott in Doctor Strangelove, going, so is Tuesday okay to schedule nuclear war with Russia? Are we good with that? Like, can we pencil that in? Nuclear winter seems very nice today. I just don't know.
Russia's in winter anyways. They won't notice the difference.
Oh my God.
They won't notice. Like, God.
Yeah.
It's
terrible.
Oh
We've got
my
some
God.
like negative 23-degree weather this whole week, so I'm like, yeah, I probably wouldn't notice.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
I
notice
mean, it's a different
that.
kind of winter, but you know, it's still winter. We were born and bred for that.
If anything, a false sun is still a sun, if you will.
Exactly.
Just sunlight.
You know, we depending on how much it blocks stuff, we might actually get a little temperature raise up here.
Dude, I'm so glad y'all covered that, though. It's one that I always find fascinating, and I was really hoping you guys would definitely hit hard and heavy. That is one. One, it's a hard one to do. It's a hard story to tell, and I think you guys have done it perfectly already. And I want to send everybody to your podcast. Definitely.
Oh, can I just
but,
add? Yeah.
Well said.
complimentary.
Well
Like,
told.
holy shit. Like, this is the marriage of podcasts. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
this was
Like,
so much
you
fun.
guys are hilarious. Like, oh man, like, I can tell you can hit Jessica's humor so spot on. I'm just watching her react in like live time, like a creep, since I'm currently off the video portion. And I'm just like, damn, like, you're hitting all the humor spots for Jessica. So
You're hitting
good
all
job
the
on that.
humor spots, and you're writing almost exactly like I write. And I just, that's why I love you guys' podcast so much. You always do write the way I write and tell things similar to the way that I tell them. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I think you're probably a little more You guys are so much better about acknowledging sources than I am. I just get I get so caught up in tales that I get. And you guys are fantastic. I am so happy to have had you on and to tell these stories. I think that you've hit also all the primary, just like listener demographics from poisoners to serial killers to literal war hero women. I mean, you guys are absolutely fantastic. And this is one that I always encourage everybody to listen to our guests, but this is one that's really going to hit home with you. And there's going to be a lot of rhyming between styles that you'll love. And I would argue in some places they're a lot better. So definitely go listen to Whining About Herstory. That being said, thank you guys so much. It was absolutely fantastic. You killed it.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We're huge fans of your podcast. So to get such high praise from you guys is hugely validating. And like, I'm over here just like melting. Yeah, we're just going to be puddles after this video. Yeah.
So Karen, I have a question. I want you guys to reiterate, since we're like coming up at the end of recording here, where can we find and support you? And I want you to include your Patreon. I want you to include any relevant link, or I will be like forcing it out of you. So,
okay, I know you have more, guys. Cough it up. Cough up the support.
She'll go step straight up over your sources. So watch out.
So you can listen to us wherever you listen to Body Count. So right after this episode, go and find us, Whining About Herstory. That's WINING. You can find us on Instagram at WAHpod, Facebook, Whining About Herstory. It's thrown me off that you're doing Instagram and Facebook backwards than you normally do. Oh. Twitter at WAH_pod. We have a website, whiningaboutherstory.com. We also have a Patreon and a Teespring account for merch. If you go to both and just search Whining About Herstory, you will find us. Our Patreon is patreon.com/Whining About Herstory. Probably. Yeah. Also, we have our link trees on all of our social media accounts. We also have all of that linked on our so if you go on our website, our Instagram or anything, you click on our link tree and you'll just be able to go wherever you want.
You just made Jessica like thinking of the show notes, like literally like so happy right now. Like,
you just have a link tree.
We try to be easy guests.
Hallelujah chorus, if you will.
Well, that way it's easier not to leave anything out. You know what I mean?
Right.
I find, because I really like to do the Twitter side of things, I just find if there's a single link, it's so much more effective, because then you run the risk of having to do multiple tweets or multiple threads. People lose their attention span, man.
Oh, also, yeah.
Man, please say that you have a pug on one of your shirts or designs, because I really hope you do.
Oh, we don't yet.
For merch.
I can make that happen. Yeah.
Can you do all three?
Yes, I can do that.
Yes! The trifecta.
So that
you should do them as little ice cream cones, because they're all different flavors.
God, yes. I also
and just do Whining About Herstory, and oh my god, I will buy that shirt and wear it so much, because again, we've already established, based on my animal breathing patterns, are they pugs? I'm so excited. They're one of my favorite dogs.
Sorry. I mean, clearly they're my favorite. Yeah. And we do mention them a lot. So I guess it would be weird.
You know, I want to ask you ladies, because obviously you guys share the same palette of taste as we do with material. So like, what do you guys like listen to, watch, or read in your downtime? I want to know what you're digging right now.
I'll let Kelly go first. Oh God, I don't like going first. Oh, I can. I just didn't want to like take over. I mean, like, are you talking specifically history? Are you talking specifically podcasts? Like, that's a very broad question.
It's broader. Anything.
Oh, I've been reading. Okay, let's see. I've been reading a lot of murder mystery books, because that's what I'm into. Okay. I've basically, this whole pandemic, I've been really into a podcast called This Podcast Will Kill You.
Oh my God, me too. So right before the pandemic started, last year, I started to get into them. Like, no joke. It was
Yeah.
pre-work when I still worked in the office, and I would go to Panera every like morning, get a bagel, sit there and listen to them. And then
They're so good.
once the pandemic hit, though, I felt like a little too close. You know what I mean? To like
Yeah.
what the subject matter is, because I was like, oh shit. Now we're going from talking about hypothetical diseases to
being in it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Probably my other weekly listen is going to be #Herstory, who we've done collabs with them before, and they're
Rachel
freaking
Leah,
fantastic.
they're so
Yep.
nice.
Yeah.
Leah, they're great.
And then obviously you guys. But yeah, that I don't have a lot of free time right now, so that's about all you have from me. Between podcast, school, and work, I don't have any time to myself. As far as I go, I listen to a lot of true crime and history podcasts, including, Wine and Crime. I'm actually binging this one right now, Red Handed. It's a female duo podcast, and they're British, so they have amazing voices. As far as like reading, I do not have time to read unless it's for my notes, so I've really gotten into audiobooks. And so I've been kind of tearing through like the freebies on Audible. And I'm actually right now I'm listening to Ruth Coker Burks' memoir, but I'm taking a break from it because it's a little devastating. Too heavy. It makes you just want to reach in and give her a hug and then punch everyone else.
I've been considering audiobooks more because I just feel like because like I work from home and there's some days I'm on like email duty when I actually could have like in theory something going on, and that just seems to me
That's when I listen to podcasts.
Supplement. That makes sense to me.
A book I bet you both would really enjoy. Kelly and I read this, The Radium Girls by Kate Moore.
It's so good. It was the only reason I downloaded Audible, because I used my free credit to buy that book. Speaking of which, we need to watch that TV show.
Yes.
Yeah, it's on Netflix now.
I randomly, back in the day when we were doing Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire, I made a reference before the book even came out, just silly enough. I said these women were essentially the same ones that were licking radium paint brushes to brush on to watch. And the fact that somebody made the book and the show, I'm so pumped because it is such a horrific story.
Well, and the great thing about this book is that it focuses on the stories of the women themselves versus just, hey, here's about the company and here's the legal stuff. By the way, a bunch of women who were actual human beings died. Right. Like, she interviews their relatives. She walks the routes they took to work. Like, it's a more personal examination of these women, who they were, and like how they dealt with what happened to them. Even outside that book, because you can cut out this plug if you want. We did a crossover with #History where we covered the Radium Girls. And like even outside the book, like the other research I did, oh my God, like it was one of those things that I went down the rabbit hole because it was fascinating but terrifying and terrible. And I'm like, our government are terrible people.
Right.
And the owner of the company. Yeah. That's the person that makes me the worst, because he knew how bad it was. And he was just like, you're fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. Your jaw's gonna fall off and you're gonna die, but it's fine. The pugs don't think it's fine.
The pups?
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes when we get really animated, they get really animated.
I love everything about that. That's amazing. That's so cute.
Honestly, Patreon request, can you seriously make like outtakes of the puppies, like just reacting to you? Because that would be great.
I usually leave them in. That's the crazy thing. There was one time I was telling a creepy story. It may have been the Angel Makers of Not Grief. I can't remember. And Kelly's little black pug busted in the room. The door wasn't shut well enough. And I saw it out of the corner of my eye. Emily was facing me, so she couldn't see the door. So I see the door like creep open, and all of a sudden Emily's like, oh my God! I see the door open and this little black shape coming at me. I'm like, Death is so tiny and cute. It was so funny. I left it in the episode. It scared the absolute hell out of me.
Oh my God.
But I should. I've been meaning to do like a Patreon video of like, this is our studio.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll do one of this is our studio and these are my dogs.
Yep.
Pug Pickle Patreon, if you will, if you're going to do the 3 Ps. Kara, really quickly, what's something you've listened to or been reading that's you're really into really quickly?
So I've been waiting on finding a 2-volume in English of The Road to Calvary, which
Ooh.
it was on Netflix for the longest time, and you ladies will be really interested, but it's set in World War I, Russia. And it was written by, not to be confused with Leo Tolstoy, Alexei Tolstoy. And the first volume was written in the 20s, and then he wrote the second part during World War II, which makes it even like darker in a way, right? Because when you think of the shit Russia's going through the
Yeah,
Great
right.
Patriotic War, and it's damn good. Like, it's a really interesting way of exploring Russian history because it follows 2 sisters. And by the way, guys, it's not on Netflix, but it's the same title. I think you can find it like somewhere on the interwebs. Hopefully Netflix will bring it back, but it follows 2
I want to
sisters.
say I can find it on Prime is where I found it, but don't hold
You
me
said
to that.
it's the Road to Calgary?
Road to Calvary, yeah. And if
Cavalry or Calgary?
hold on, Jimmy gets me on this all the time because that's one of those words you switch a letter.
Calvary. It's Calvary.
Cool.
Calvary.
I'm glad you determined this. So, basically, I'm super hyped because I could only find volume 1 in English for the longest time. I mean, I looked on AbeBooks, I looked on like all your like used out of print because it's only been published like 1 time in English in like 1946. So like, it was super hype. I found it on eBay from like an estate sale for both volumes because there's 3 books within it, but there's 2 volumes because book 1 and 2 are like compile 1, and then the one that was later on is the second volume. And it's so tragic, dude. The way that they end the show, you're just like, did things get better in Russia? And you and me and like everyone fourth wall is like, no, they do not.
Oh,
Not really.
no.
Like, because they start, it starts out bad, right? Because you have like middle class, borderline bourgeois sisters, and then everything's taken out like from under their feet. And God, it's such a good class study on the Russian Civil War. And it's interesting because I would have thought that like the government wouldn't have liked it, but it technically won the Stalin Prize for Literature.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
think because there's like a patriotic element within it of like serving the country, and I could see it being like a motivating thing, like in a propaganda tool, because it would have been like published right around the time that she was touring, like Canada
Right.
and US, the last lady you were speaking about. So, wow. But no, I think you would love it. If you can find the show, it's good. It's in Russian with English subtitles. So obviously, unless you magically know Russian, you'll have to put the subs on. But it's good.
Are you kidding? You've listened to our podcast enough to know that we don't know Russian.
We don't
even
know
anything.
No, French is
guillotine.
tricky too. The difference with French is you literally don't pronounce like half of anything, and with Russian, you have to like pronounce almost everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's
how
what
about
I've
you,
been doing.
Jessica? What have you been digging lately?
What I've been digging, 2 books. One is going to come to call as we go through our interviews. It's going to be Josh Proven's Wild East, The British in Japan from 1854 to 1868. The reason I love this is something that a period we touched on when we were getting into our very first episode we did on this podcast, talking about going into why it is that the Japanese have such a problem with Western powers when they're talking when we're talking about getting into the Japanese theater, when we're getting into the Pacific theater, when we're getting into a lot of different stuff. I don't want to say specifically Pearl Harbor because that's not necessarily accurate, but it's a real post Great White Fleet parked outside of Japan, and sort of how that opens all of Japan to the Western world, and post isolationism, which also has some great rhymes to isolationism, is the way we pick it up later on. It's a great book. I've actually read it. I cannot Woo, it's really good. I didn't expect to be that into the subject material. No offense, Josh, but I very much was. I thought it was very well written. And then
Where can you
something
find
that
Josh? Where can you find him?
you can
Land of
find
History.
Josh at Land of History. Is that correct?
On Twitter. Adventures in Historyland is his YouTube channel and his blog name.
YouTube.
Because I'm always the pimp of people.
You do know.
non-
I mean, that's
Yeah.
what a pimp is. The handler. Maybe that's nicer.
She's a promoter.
Yeah, the promoter. You're the town crier.
I like that so much better than the pimp or any other words that were used before that. The handler.
But I also like that
the town crier, like a little bell.
My Simpson, like my Homer Simpson, the town crier, sort of where I was going with that. Yeah, exactly. She always is. And then something else that we're going to, when we're done with this entire thing of getting everybody on our podcast and doing everything, and now I can't seem to open it, which is annoying. I think it is Rudolf Ersog that does something called The History of Nuclear Folly. And the reason I want everybody to read this is it's an amalgamation of everything in the world, from like DOE reports to all the BS that I'm reading from different countries. I'm
intrigued.
Me too.
It's the best book, and this is why I wanted to say it. It's if you want to deep dive this is a great place to start, because it's something we're going to cover.
Is it A Short History of Nuclear Folly? Mad scientists, dithering Nazis, lost nukes, and catastrophic cover-ups?
Oh my God,
Yes,
that's a title.
It's on Amazon.
That's it. That is it.
I need to see if it's on Audible.
I believe it is. I could be wrong. I believe it is. I think it's a brief listen. I've got some other things that there are much bigger, more complex books on the subject. Of course, you're going to be able to dive in archivally. You're going to be able to pull up a lot of DOE reports on this kind of stuff. That's all tedious AF, right? Like nobody wants to do this. This is a great short introductory kind of thing that we're going to do to something that we're going to cover later when we've finished our guest tour kind of thing and putting podcasts and everything we love out there and kind of revamping like we're doing right now. But this is something we're going to cover, and I suggest everybody read this if you want to be really horrified by not just other sovereign nations but our own. And this one's just really going to
I definitely just added it to my Amazon wish list. I was gonna say looking it up on Audible.
It's so short, it's a concise, like I do believe they also have it on Audible. I could be wrong, but if not, so. It's a clippy short read for
only
Kindle.
256 pages. That's actually not bad.
Yeah, no, you'll plow through it in horror. Let me put it that way.
Well, and I'm one of those people that if I get into a book, I'll finish easily a 300-page book in a night. I stay up till like 3 a.m. But
I'm the same way though. I either will read it all at like once, or it'll be one of those situations where I read a good chunk and then I get distracted.
Yeah, and then I don't go back to it for like a month. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have to like reread and backtrack so you're like on the same page, which is why I want to get into audiobooks.
That my husband has gone to bed and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to finish this chapter. and then 12 chapters later when I finish the book, I finally go to bed.
I'm that same way, but based on everything I was doing to find all this, somebody actually randomly suggested, why don't you just read this, you moron? And then by the time I'm done, I was like, God, that's the most concise, like...
Right, you're like, dang it.
It really is. So I suggest everyone read that for some things we're going to have coming up. It'll blow your mind. Let me put it that way. So that means...
Talking of podcasts on other podcasts, I would like to formally invite you guys to join us on our podcast in October for our Felonious Females
Yes.
for an episode. Whoever you guys want to cover.
I would
I know that's like a
absolutely love
long
to do
ways
that.
out, but I have faith that both of
Good
our
with that.
podcasts will still be going strong.
Oh,
And I'm like,
I would
this
love.
is a second date invite. Second date.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
It's a second date. It is a follow up, and then I also, since we're coming on y'all's, kind of want to get something particularly, different. Maybe something you haven't heard before. And I think between Kara and I, we can rustle up something just.
Yes.
And I mean, we're giving you
Absolutely.
plenty of time to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry.
Yes.
No rock will be left unturned when we scour the earth for something that has not been covered and you would not find. So
All right.
Jessica and I are on a quest.
Felonious females, you said, right?
Yep.
I mean, they don't have to be felons. It's really, we just cover generally terrible people.
We tend to
during
cover murderers, or we call them spooky bitches. Like I covered Francis Glessner Lee, who created the nutshell studies on unexplained death. So spooky bitches. Whatever that means to you.
I wanted to
I
ask
think
you.
between us, we can rustle one up.
Yes, we
Yeah.
can. I wanted to ask you, ladies. So obviously we've covered what we're all listening to. I would really like you guys to come on again at some point too, maybe in a couple months from now, because I'm telling you, when I say I feel like y'all are spirit, like pod twins, I'm not shitting. Like y'all have
No,
the same sense of humor.
I agree. We're definitely all on the same vibe.
Yeah. I actually, for this episode, I started writing up an entirely new set of notes
She really
because
did.
there's a female Minnesota murder that I thought was really interesting. And then you said you want us to kind of touch on some of the women we've covered in the past, and God knows we've got plenty of those, but I have a very special one if you want it.
Yes, we do. I
Okay.
mean,
Of course
if
we
it's
do.
any-
I'm
oh,
like halfway
man.
done with the notes.
Hell yeah. Hell
Well,
yeah.
and that one we'll do like a deeper dive where we'll split one story.
Yeah.
I like that idea too, because that would be, yeah, I like that.
What we really wanted to do, and again for our listeners on this first one, is we wanted to plug the podcast. We knew there were a lot of similarities, a lot of rhyming schemes there. We want everybody to go and listen. You liked these stories, you will like all of their content. You're going
Yep.
to love it because our fans are going to love this, and it's very much going to be in the vein of everything that y'all do. So they're going to absolutely love hearing it. That being said, if we're going to do news stories in October, we would absolutely love any time that y'all get it done and you want to do it, just let us know. It is a free pass to be on this
Yep.
podcast
So
all
we're
day
just
long.
gonna show
Sounds
up like
good.
every other week. No, I'm kidding.
I also love that none of us are trying to play it cool. We're all like, we love each other, and that's fine.
It's just how it is. We just really love each other.
It's refreshing because I feel like sometimes like females, like in any kind of media form, are just like pitted against each other. Like,
They very much
and
are.
that's a fucking sexist ass shit. Like, honestly, it's like What's Her Name podcast had said, and this is why I love those ladies as well. It's like podcasts like that are hosted by women are like the majority, and they're underserved in the demographic of listen to podcasts. So anything we can do to amplify women's stories and women podcasters is a huge service, both to history as far as Herstory goes, right? And then
Yes.
as far as just like breaking down those Joe Rogans and adding some good shit. So,
Right.
Yes.
but
No, that's fine.
Damn it.
Because empowered
Kara,
women empower
That's what I was
women.
going to say. I was going to be like, we always say, empowered women empower women.
Would you all stop taking my campaign buttons that I'm making in my head? Stop it. I have a whole sort of Girl Scout podcast vest in mine, and I was making buttons and patches, and they were all of those things I was going to say. That being said,
Juliet
go
Gordon-Lowe
ahead.
would be an interesting one. Because every time, like, it's like Girl Scout cookie season, I'm kind of like, do people really talk about like Juliet Gordon-Lowe or not?
I don't know who that
1000%, I
is.
don't even know who that is.
Holy shit, I was a Girl Scout. That's probably the only reason.
I was a Girl Scout and I don't know who that is.
I was and she was, I'm very interested. So I think she lived in Savannah because they have the house down there. But that would be a good one for y'all if you haven't covered it, because it's not body county yet, although there's some ghoulish stuff with her parents, but more not like.
Oh, she founded the Girl Scouts. All right.
Yeah, it wasn't like an abuse situation. It's just I'm pretty sure the house she lived in was super haunted kind of shit.
I mean,
and pretty sure,
I could get down
as
with
with
this.
most people in the South, they had relatives to the Confederacy, which probably means lots of atrocities were probably committed. But interesting tale to be woven at some point. I will listen to like literally anything you guys put out. So
Yeah.
So we can stop trying.
So I'm just going to put my pug in front of the microphone and it'll just be her breathing for 20 minutes.
That's ASMR, right?
Yeah.
Thank you both for joining in. And they just shared just a little bit ago where you can support and follow them. Seriously, guys, these are women podcasters you need to follow because they amplify women's history in the very best sort of ways. If anyone's interested in following me, which you may or may not be, you can find me at Cara DiDemizio on Twitter or Cara.DiDemizio on Instagram. And also notably, you can find me running the Time Travel Talks Discord, which now that we have that back up and running, as well as the Twitter, we are resuming more of our Twitter chats. So we're actually putting more regular history questions out into the Twitter sphere. Lately, we've been doing the Valentine's Day historical romance stuff. So
I saw that one pop up.
along. Yeah, so we'll be vibing with that. We're going to be doing a lot more thematic stuff across the week. That way, number one, it's not a whole weekend of like questions thrown at people. And that way you can always feel free to chime in, even if it's after the fact. So it's a great way to talk and learn about different people in history, different things in history. And there might be another podcast in the works. That'll be coming up too. So you'll get a double dose of me, possibly, listeners. I do apologize. But in any case, please follow Time Travel Talks on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. No spaces or dashes. And where can we find you, Jessica? And where can we find Body Count?
Well, most importantly, we'll cover me in a second. Let's talk about where we find Body Count. So you can find us at Body Count Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I know this is stuff you guys already know, but I cannot reiterate it. We're going to start putting out a lot more Patreon content now that we've kind of narrowed down what it is and what we're trying to do and what's going to be put out. So that is patreon.com/body count. You can find us there. Super easy. Pops right up. Also, you can find us at bodycounthistorypod.com. Within the next week or two, we're going to have that new website out. It's going to look very and vastly different. There's going to be a lot more. It's going to be great. We're going to start posting up our show notes. I'm not going to put the paper version because I don't want to be that boring. It would absolutely kill my soul to pretend to even for a second be an academic. It might eat at my brain. That being said, we are going to put a lot of things like the Nuclear Folly book up that are going to be our sources for a lot of the stuff we put out, show notes, blog wise, and we may have people putting stuff out there as well. Just really quickly, I want to add, Cara, Time Travel Talks is going to also have
a website.
Yeah.
It's pretty, I would say, Leah, who, by the way, guys, she's great to follow her at Leela History. She's fantastic. She's my cohort, so to speak, with the history.
Oh, what is she on Instagram? Really quickly,
Celt MVP, which makes I'm not sure the origin, but Celt MVP on Instagram. Yes, I know people's usernames on Twitter and Instagram like that, but she's worth a follow. Although right now I think she is only posting pictures of her cute Australian Shepherd puppy that she has.
So not only, again, am I going to be plugging the new website, we're going to put out even more importantly, or even more crucially to what it is that we want to do here at this show, which is popularize history and in a way that everyone can participate. Time Travel Talks is also going to be putting a new website out. That being said, you can follow me, Jessica B, as in Bravo, Manor, as in the house, not the behavior.
Thank you.
Jessica B Manor at Instagram and Twitter. Sorry, I'm not a Facebooker, guys, but you can absolutely find me in those places. And then again, Jessica Manor at bodycountpod.com. You can email me as well. So I think that's going to do it for us this week. And guess that we're definitely going to lay down, throw a fit on the floor, and invite to come back if anything, just beg.
Literally.
Prostrate myself.
I will expect that video in the next week.
Yes.
It's going to be weird. It's going to be wonderful.
I
It's slightly
can see that.
uncomfortable, but you will laugh. It's the TikTok that I don't have.
We are here for it.
Yeah, we are.
Good. That being said, we are going to wrap it up and let everyone go. Again, go find, follow, listen to at Whining About Herstory,
Yes.
because I know you guys are crazy about this content that they've just put out. So we thank you all, and we will join you next week. Goodbye.